Hi, welcome back. Previous lesson was on average revenue, average cost, and the profit margin. Today we'll be moving on to the first part of free entry and exit in the long run. Free entry and exit refer to the ability of a firm to enter and exit a market without facing significant barriers. So the cost benefit principles provide a clear guidance for firms to decide whether or not to enter or exit a market. Now, the benefit of entering or staying in a market is the revenue the firm will earn. When we look at benefit of entering or staying, this is the revenue that you're going to earn in the market. And then the cost of entering a market includes both the explicit financial cost that a firm will incur as well as the opportunity cost, such as foregone wages and interest in alternative market. So when we look at the cost of staying in a particular market or even the cost of now entering the market, this includes the explicit cost. So we've noted in our previous lessons that explicit financial cost, they include maybe wages that you pay, rent, and other costs such as maybe cost of raw materials. And then we also have the implicit opportunity cost, which includes the foregone wages that you would have earned if you were maybe working for someone instead of starting your own business, or the foregone interest in alternative market. We have seen when we were looking at economic profit that economic profit measures the difference between the revenue and then your explicit financial cost and the implicit opportunity cost. This yields a very useful guidance for potential entrepreneurs who are looking to either enter or exit a market. Now let's start with the rational rule for entry into a market. The rational rule for entry is that a firm should enter a new market if we expect to earn positive economic profit. This positive economic profit occurs at a point where your price exceeds your average cost of production. Go from our previous lesson that we said that whenever price is bigger than your average cost gain, then there is profit opportunity. This rule simply says that if there's an opportunity for you to earn positive economic profit, then you should take it. So in other words, it's saying that every time a firm's price is bigger than the average cost curve, then this represents a profit opportunity and new firms can consider entering into this market. So if we look at this on the curve, we can use this information to analyze entry into a market and how that entry affect existing firms' demand curve. So let's consider an existing firm in this market where this is their initial demand curve before any other firms enter. In a particular market, when new firms enter, you will lose a part of your market share. This is because some of your customers will switch to your competitors. For instance, if there are 100 people that are being served in this market, so whenever any firm enters the market, it means your market share of this demand is going to decrease. The new firm might take maybe 10 people or 20 people, which reduces your market share. This shifts your demand curve to the left. So this will be represented by your new demand curve. Now, in addition to the reduction in your market share, new business means that you have competition. So your customers now have other options. This increases the competition in the market and your customers are less likely to stay with you if your prices are higher than your competitors. As a result, you have less market power, which means your firm's demand curve is flatter or relatively more elastic. We see that even though the curve has shifted to the left, that is not the only thing happening. The initial demand curve is steeper than the new demand curve. This is as a result of a reduction in market power. We said market power is your ability to influence the price without losing a significant number of your customers. So businesses with less market power typically charge lower prices, earning a lower profit margin. So what this means is two things are happening to existing firms. when other firms enter the market. So the first is a decrease in their demand because of a decrease in the market share. And the second thing is a decrease in the market power, which makes their curve more elastic. Now let's move on to exits and the firm's demand curve. The rational rule for exit is that a firm should exit a market if it expects to earn negative economic profit, which occurs at the point where price is less than the average cost. So just like we saw for positive economic profit, negative economic profit is when the price that you're charging is less than the average cost per unit. What this simply means is you get less for the unit sold than the cost that you incurred on that unit. The rule simply says that whenever your price is less than your average cost curve, consider exiting a market. Exiting doesn't necessarily mean shutting down. It could mean exiting an unprofitable market, but staying in a business by pivoting towards profitable opportunities you identify in other markets. With this information, let's look at what happens to existing firms when other firms exit a particular market. So let's consider a firm's initial demand curve as this. When your rival exits the market, it increases your market share as you sell to buyers who used to buy from your rival. So this increases your firm's demand, which shifts your demand curve to the right. So we can see this movement from this initial demand curve to our new demand curve, which represents an increase in the demand when the rival exits the market. So in addition to this increased demand, the departure of your rival also means that buyers have limited options. So you have more market power, which means that your firm's demand curve will now become steeper. We can see that the new demand curve is steeper than the old demand curve. The steeper curve simply means that your buyers are not very responsive to changes in the price of your good. Hence, you can increase your price without losing all of your customers. So the net effect of an increase in demand and a more market power is that as rivals exit your market, your profit will recover because you sell larger quantities at higher prices. So what we're saying here is two things are happening to existing firms when rivals exit the market. The first thing is an increase in their market share is represented by an increase in demand because less firms are now serving all of the existing customers. So you now get a larger share and you serve people that were initially buying from your rival. Now, this is represented by a shift in the demand curve to the right. Now, the next thing that is happening is an increase in your market power. So this increase in your market power is represented in a more inelastic demand curve, which is steeper. So a steeper curve simply means that your consumers have limited options because there are now few of you serving the market. So you can now afford to increase your price slightly. And because of the limited options that the consumers have, they may still stay with you as compared to how things were previously. This is all that we have on the first part of our lesson on entry and exit in the short and long run. Our next lesson is going to be on the second part. If you enjoyed today's lesson, consider subscribing. Thank you.